Again, my name is Todd Washburn. I always like to say that. I always forget to do it normally, so I check that off the list and relieve the pressure for the rest of the meeting. But Happy New Year. I know it's the 16th of January, but it's the first time we've been back together. And my hope is that you all had a great time with your family and friends and got recharged and are back in the thick of things for 2020. I'm struggling with that as I'm signing different things with that date. I still want to put 19. I don't know if that happens to anybody else. But thank you for being here. Thank you. I know we have some weather issues. We also had a couple doors that didn't get unlocked, and so thank you for your patience on that. We are going to pick up where we left off last time at our December 12th meeting, and we'll turn that on. And I'll give you an overview, and I just want to kind of let you know a little bit of where we're at. First of all, we're in a little bit of a transition in that we talked about starting this meeting. We started it in November, and we also talked about bringing in a third-party facilitator, someone with some expertise that can kind of help us navigate through that process, really dig deep into the data, look at different models. And so we have been in contact with that group, and I'll talk about it a little bit later in the presentation. But for tonight, what we're looking at doing is we're really trying to set that foundation and collect some more feedback from this group so that we can be really efficient and effective with the use of that third party as they're collecting data and helping guide the direction of what we look at as far as high school models, as we begin to talk about a little bit in December. The other piece I will say is I think there's a possibility that we may get out a little bit early tonight. I hope that does not bother anybody with the bad weather and those types of things. I did not want to cancel the meeting because I think you need to have some momentum going. I think we still have some things we can talk about and collect data that will inform and drive the rest of the decision piece. We're going to still be a little bit in the philosophical mode tonight and kind of helping to narrow that focus. But I promise you in February we're going to be coming at you with a lot of updated data, demographics, really talking more deeply about those high school options for you. So just hang with us again, and we do have that plan that we'll be moving forward with. Again, I always like to start out why we're here, what we believe in, and so I think as we're having these conversations, always be mindful of what our vision and mission is as a district. Again, I always like the pictures because it reminds us why are we here. It's not about me, it's really about the students. What we can do to provide those exceptional facilities for our kiddos that will enable teachers to provide programs and opportunities for them to be successful. Just reviewing again the overview, we're here looking at that future piece. We're also really looking at specific parameters. We're looking at what facility needs we need over the next 5 to 8 years. And again, we're reminding about we are a recommending body. We don't make ultimate decisions, but we are representing the voice of the community, the voice of our teachers, and also I'll talk about student voice that will be factored in. I'm going to share a little bit of the student voice that was collected between the December meeting and now. I'll talk to you a little bit about third-party consulting near the end of the meeting. I'll talk a little bit about what their role is and how they can help support our process. Again, you've seen this before, but we're charged with developing those long-range facility recommendations and providing those to the board. Our composition, again, many of us are here representing certain groups, and most of us represent multiple groups when we really get down to it. Many of us would be in all three of those groups. When we talk about the charge, again, we're looking at new campuses, we're looking at additional spaces, we're also looking at are there needs for existing campuses. As you look out 5 years or more, sometimes you have to do something to existing facilities. Things like HVAC and roofs and those types of things, depending on the age of the building. So we'll be studying and talking about those as well. Again, committee charge, and we're going to begin that investigation of best practices tonight. We'll just dip our toes in that, but we'll get more deeply into that in February. The demographic information, we've been in contact with PASA, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we're working on getting updated numbers, because one of the things we'll talk about that you mentioned is we need the most current data to inform us and guide us on that facility need piece. Those are our norms. Again, complement this group. When you have large groups, sometimes it's hard to keep people from talking over each other or getting people back on track. You all have been great with when we have group discussions or small group discussions, come back the whole group. It's been really great and productive, so I appreciate that. Collective commitments. Again, I think student focus is important. We want to be, fiscally sound and responsible. We want to make sure that, we have open dialogue and, we listen to all opinions and views and value those. Just a quick review on the December 12th meeting. And I continue to bring these up because this is kind of our eye on that future piece. Again, keeping in mind we're talking about looking at 5 years, but even looking out beyond that, that we're anywhere from that 12 to 15,000 student mark that, because as mentioned before, some decisions that we're making currently will have impacts well beyond that 5 years. Those are our enrollment numbers. Again, just sitting just over 7,200 students. We'll be bringing updated information on that current enrollment next time when we come together. Again, this is for visual purposes, and it's basically the yellow represents any time our capacity goes above that 120%. And keeping in mind the building we are in right now, Dripping Springs, is under construction. That new capacity will get to 2,500 by the start of next school year, so we'll be updating that chart for you next time as well. So with new numbers on projections and then how that capacity rolls out. This is another, again, for planning purposes, illustration purposes, as we just look at that 120% based on those numbers that were put in place probably about 6 to 9 months ago. You can see how facilities may land depending on if that enrollment and projection numbers continue on. What I do want to do is kind of draw your attention to that number or that specific data point. If you look at the most immediate need, that one is coming towards us the fastest, is that middle school discussion decision. And the board has had just some brief discussions. Currently, our capacities are different, right? Sycamore Springs is at a capacity of about 800, 850, and then Dripping Springs Middle School is at 1,200, or a little over 1,200. So that decision on what direction we go with that capacity will drive a lot of our decision making related to how quickly we need new campuses versus additions to campuses, and then also would have an impact on timing of when we have bond elections and we go to the voters to increase that capacity to build buildings. Does that make sense? So we're not talking about middle school tonight because I need to get information about high school that will feed our conversation with partner strategies in February, but in February we'll be coming back to that and having some conversation and getting some feedback from them. Y'all with me? Awesome. So the other piece I want to keep coming back to, I truly do believe is when we meet with committees, when I ask you for feedback or exit tickets and those types of things, we use those to help guide and direct what those topics are as we're going through this process. And so I like to bring these back up because some of this was talked about a while ago, but at that very first November meeting, y'all remember that one, where we asked you what does success look like? Again, a comprehensive plan, came out. Obviously, we want all these nights of getting together to result in something that's tangible that can help inform and give guidance to the board. Making sure it's collaborative in nature, a lot of dialogue, conversation, not just me talking all the time. Structure so that we can be efficient and effective with our time. And then, fiscal responsibility and then that student focus, again, going back to that picture I showed here. So that was what success, how you all define success at that first meeting. And then the challenges, I think this is important for us to keep in mind. Are we trying to address those challenges? And again, growth and projections, that's why we're really coming back to what does that current information look like and be as accurate as we can with that. Balancing, again, spending is important. Looking at, community identity. Are there needs for land in the near future? Do we need to be prepared for those types of things. So again, I just bring those to the forefront. So as we go through that process, you can say, wait, we haven't talked about this area yet, and make sure that we're doing that. So we use that as a little check and balance for us as well. Last time we got together, if you remember, we did a little brainstorming session. We said, why did you move to Griffin Springs? And so on the left-hand side, you'll see a lot around, the school had a really good reputation. It was, getting out of Austin. It's that small-town feel, family values, safety, student opportunities. Those were some of the reasons. And just to remind you of what do those numbers represent? Remember, we had 9 table groups, and so we kind of tallied those areas. And so that's what those numbers represent. That isn't just 9 votes, but that's a collective group information there. And then the other piece was, what are other things that we need to consider as we're planning and going through that process? And so you can see, again, projections are important. That, capacity finances, of course, we need to have the money available if we're going to build buildings, so making sure we have that in place. Community connection, innovation is important, transportation and zoning is important. So you can see a lot of those things that you all brainstormed last time. We also went through that Imagineering. What would that ideal high school experience look like? What are those things that, as we're thinking buildings and facilities, we want to make sure that they will support those things we believe in as far as that high school experience. So this is a list of things you came up with. Again, guaranteed viable curriculum, very robust, very rigorous. Lots of opportunities for students, a variety of opportunities for students. Knowing that one size doesn't fit all, we want to make sure that we're providing opportunities also, not only for our college and career-ready students, but students who may have an interest in career technical or going straight to the workforce. So student voice, sense of belonging, again, that community piece when we're thinking about facilities and designing those. How can we design those that support that? Future-ready technology. You can see the rest of that on there. And then the other side, you can see, again, these were all the things listed: school pride, flexible spaces, inclusivity, and so on. So that's kind of what we did the majority of the time last we were together. The exit ticket that I asked you for last time was around what additional information would you need as we're talking or beginning that discussion around high school options. And really, it came out at the very top, that model analysis, really talking about what are those potential models beyond just a second high school. What kind of alternatives are there, and pros and cons to that. High school size, budgetary impact, student voice came out again. How do we get student voice? Make sure we're representing that well. And then some ideas about, can we look at maybe collecting additional feedback beyond this room via some type of a survey or a way to collect some information from the community as a whole. So that was the exit ticket from last time. In January, what I did was I worked with Ms. Gomez, and we, in the council, kind of put together a very eclectic group of students, 9th through 12th graders, who were involved in a variety of different activities: extracurricular, co-curricular, fine arts, performing arts, not involved in anything, only involved in clubs. And so we tried to get a nice distribution of students from 9th through 12th grade to get some feedback and input from them, because again, the group said it's important that we don't just sit here and decide what's important, but we ask the students. So we did that, and we had our first meeting on January 9th. Oops. And got feedback, and I took them through a very similar exercise. We really talked about a couple questions. I'm going to share that data with you right now. But the students, as I talked with them and got feedback, they were very excited, number one, to be asked. And two, they had some great ideas and were very enthusiastic about it. And three, when I asked them, is this something that if there were future need to continue to get feedback on, I'd say it was about 90% that said absolutely they would love to be a part of that. So I thought that was very telling. And again, our students are good kids, and You know, they see, because none of the students that I'm talking to now will probably benefit from any of the decisions we make because they'll be out of high school at that time, but they had a passion to be involved in it. So it was a little bit different. I asked them, first of all, what do you like about your high school? Because again, as we're thinking about models and what's effective and what works and what that student voice is, I think it's important to know that. And you can see, I know these are a little bit harder to read, but some context. We had 9 tables. They had 5 tables. So when you see 4 up there, that's pretty significant, or even 3. So opportunities to bring people together. It's that community feel of the high school, knowing people and being connected with people and having common purpose to come together was important to them. Student-teacher relationship came out very strongly. That they feel like, you know, a huge part of that culture is, you know, that relationship that the students have with their teachers and how they support and encourage them and challenge them at the same time. That was also important. They loved the diversity of classes, lots of different choices, lots of academic opportunities, lots of electives. That was very important to them. Real-world experiences also came out very high, and then the rigor and the opportunity to gain college credit. They mentioned on-ramps and ACC, but AP is in there as well. But I think they kind of singled those out a little bit more because it's a little bit beyond, you know, the ACC involves obviously ACC, and then on-ramps is the UT program. But they liked earning college credits in high school. That was important as well. We also talked a lot about, it was interesting, that cultural piece on recognizing that, and we kind of did a quick little poll of how many have you been here since kindergarten, how many came in middle school, and how many at the high school level. And it was actually, it was a pretty good balance. And what I appreciated their insight on was that they recognized that and say, we like that we have, you know, people who are coming in new, and then we get to learn from them, and they talk, and some of them actually talk about their different experiences being at different high schools as well. So I thought that was unique. They picked up on that. I also asked them, again, you're not with the committee when we have our meetings, but what are some things you would like the committee to consider? And so that's what's on the right-hand side. They really talked about, you know, those outdoor learning environment spaces, also collaborative spaces. Places, and it's not surprising, places where they can gather and collect and, you know, talk about homework or work on projects together. They like those kind of collaborative spaces throughout the building as well. This is very passionate traffic. And I think some of you that drive by the high school about the time it releases probably are very passionate about the traffic too. And so, you know, they would love for us to make sure we're considering that, because and parking, traffic and parking, really big for our students. And I have to say, in a little bit of fairness to the situation, we're building capacity, right? So we have construction, and one of our lots was absorbed temporarily by the construction site, and of course that displaced a lot of our kiddos who park in that lot. So that was a very hot topic, and I'm like, okay, I got it. We'll make sure we incorporate that. But that was important. I like the vision and unity. They were talking about, you know, whatever the configuration ends up being, having that common vision and that common experience, so that there isn't, you know, a different feeling or opportunities at one school versus the other school. So that unity piece, they talked a lot about that as well. Strategic placement of campuses again. Angela, is there anything else that bubbled up to you that you were in there that they talked about? Yeah, they're very vocal and very willing to, you know, share their thoughts and ideas. And so that was a little bit of a hybrid from what you all did at your last meeting. And then we also did the Imagineering with them. And it was interesting with the students in high school. They struggled a little bit more with this, because I think it was harder for them to imagine something that because they're currently right in it, right? And so on many things, students tend to be very creative in things, but with the students at the high school, sometimes I think they're so entrenched in it, it's harder for them. So I had to kind of keep pushing on them a little bit to get them to think a little bit differently. Again, just imagine, what could it be? What's lacking, kind of thing. So that was an interesting piece of it. And so as we talked through it though, what we ended up doing, you'll see the left, the gold chart, is basically what they liked about high school. Because again, that's something they really believe in and would like to see continue. And then that burgundy side chart is more that I was trying to push them a little bit more on, okay, beyond what you like about it, what else? What are some things that might be opportunities for us? And that's where you see, they were talking about really this idea of flexible periods, and I think it's almost, the way I interpret it, and help me, Angela, if you think it's different, I think they were looking for like space within the day that they had a little more ownership or control over, that gave them some flexibility either through an advisory or a study hall or something where they could reflect and process or actually kind of manage their time a little bit within the school day. Is that kind of fair what they were saying? So I thought that was interesting, and the whole idea of flexible learning or flexible furniture and spaces, and they like that variety of, looking at how can we provide those collaborative spaces, how can we have different configurations so, every classroom isn't as, oh, we're going to get in these desk chairs, and, so a lot of flexibility there. Real world experiences again came up. The other part about alignment came up again, which is interesting from them on the Imagineering. They really wanted to make sure that teachers are aligned and talking and collaborating and have that same expectation. If you're in a pre-AP class or an AP class, or if you're in some type of a TTE course, that they're aligning those expectations. That was important in that shared experience. I thought that was interesting on their part. We talked about maker spaces as well, and more opportunities for certifications, which I thought was a neat thing. Again, recognizing maybe not every student is going straight to college. Are there more opportunities, programs that we could add to the mix that would give more options for all students? And you see school pride in there, growth mindset. They did talk about really the GPA and trying to minimize that importance and really focus on learning, which I think is great that they recognize that. Anything else? And I keep picking on Angela because I know she was there. I'm trying to represent the students.
I think the really interesting and very cool things that they brought to the table had nothing to do with the thing. It was to do with the experience and the people that they experienced it with. And I thought that was wise beyond their years and stuff that we can do now too.
Yeah.
So, that's great.
That's great. Again, relationships kind of resonated with them again, and that experience in doing things collectively together. So what I thought would be valuable for us, since we did say student voice is important, and that feedback as we're planning and designing, we're still in that kind of visioning area, is I thought if we could spend a little time reflecting, and I actually need to pass some things out on what we imagined and what we thought was important, and compare that to what the students came up with, and kind of identify what things are similar. So what's similar, what's different, and then also brainstorm, if we want to come back to those students to get some additional feedback on some things, what are some of those questions that we need to be asking those students to give us feedback that will help inform some of our decision making and our planning? So I'm going to pass out to you those sheets so you can kind of look at them side by side. And I want to spend about 10-15 minutes for y'all at your tables where you're at. Just talk about it and just kind of capture thoughts on similarities, differences, and then what other questions do we want to know. Does that make sense? You good? All right. I will get these passed out and then we'll get started. So we're going to modify the way we share out this activity. At the end of the meeting, I'll go ahead and pick up your feedback on the chart tablet and consolidate and identify. I'm sure there'll be a lot of similarities, but what I did ask each table to do is to reflect on their conversation and identify what are those three big ideas or thoughts or questions you had that bubbled up from your conversation. And so what we won't go around. We'll go around to each table and hear those three. And again, if someone mentions that, you can just say, you can mention that, and then if you have anything to add, feel free to add. But just the top three things that resonate, and I'll just take volunteers to start with. Anyone want to kick us off?
Our three things that we saw as kind of the big rocks that really kind of focused our attention tonight were safety, which was a similarity, the college future readiness, technology, CTE, all of that we kind of felt was lumped into one as a similarity. And the difference that really stood out to us was food. It was not on our radar at all, but it was on their radar in multiple facets. So, there you have it.
And teenagers tend to be hungry.
Yes, thank you.
Who else? What extra table?
Well done.
All right, thank you.
Our big takeaways were similar to what Angela articulated, which were around environment and experience that the kiddos have, the overall culture, and the SEL with a sense of belonging.
Thank you. And now we're just defaulting to going around. I'm sorry, guys.
One of the things we said overall was how similar both groups were, which means we're probably on the right track.
Anyone else? You have two extras. Anyone else?
I thought it reflected that the present kids in high school are having everybody else.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Thank you. This table here, this spokesperson. Oh.
We need to establish these up front so someone else gets to talk.
Some commonalities were definitely the quality and passionate staff. And also, I'm going to say sports and fine arts and extracurricular is something that we all want to make sure continue. Parking was one of the differences or something that they brought up that we didn't have on ours. And I think we probably think of parking as included in facilities and how does that all work? And they're like, I want my spot. We just noticed in general that there were a lot more in common than there were differences. Also, for the kids, that they really picked up on the cafeteria, the parking, the traffic, all the ancillary pieces. That really stood out to us. And then also we had a sense of belonging, school spirit, and we also talked about the social emotional learning piece, that how those what that really meant, what the comments were that the kids made, that those got categorized into those terms.
We're over here. Don't everybody look away at once.
Turn away.
We talked about the similarities in curriculum that we both parents and our group, adults and teens, both were interested in flexible, college-ready, innovative, aligned curriculum. The importance of safety on campus, and also the flexible spaces and furniture.
Thank you.
We're volunteering now.
All right, so some of the things that we noted was on the student side, we noticed that they were really future-minded, like how can my high school experience help me in my future? CTE, ACC, and Honor App, which community touched on that, but it was more about structure and rigor. And students wanted flexibility and autonomy, less time in the class, and more creativity. And student community versus, we found that the community viewed the school or wanted it to be a hub for the community versus student community.
Did I get to every table? Though, just out of curiosity, anyone have a question or that they think needs to go back to the students they'd like to share?
We have two. We'd like the kiddos to elaborate on school pride, exactly what do they mean. And secondly, we want more info on flexible periods or flexibility with their learning.
One of the things we talked about was, what does safety look like to students? We had a feeling that might be different to them than it does
Good. Any other questions?
We had a discussion about why one high school, and whether that was driven by older students who all went to dripping, and so they only know one facility at a time, or if that was younger, just how that all came across, and what does one high school mean to them? What is the benefit to that?
We had that too. Yeah, we had that too.
You had that too? Great. Any other, sorry.
I could just say.
We just said maybe get some individual written responses, because when kids get together, they tend to group think, and then maybe it will drill down into some of that, like, sped never came up, but that's probably because they're not going to offer that in a group setting.
We really want to know from the kids if there were two high schools and they had different programming at the two different schools, what would they think about that? What are the thoughts about that concept or idea? And then they had mentioned about being heard, and we want to know how would they like to be heard more.
Thank you. And what I'll do is I'll collect those sheets and consolidate them, and I'm sure you've already identified very similar concepts there, and then start to build that list of questions for students as well. Thank you all for that. We're going to move on to the next portion, and this is the beginning part about discussing high school options. And so this is where I'm going to start talking a little bit about that partnership with what we're going to be working with Cooperative Strategies, and I'll get into greater detail, but they are a company that's been around for over 25 years. They've worked with over 2,000 school districts, and their expertise is around facility planning, long-range planning, programming, high school sizes, pros and cons, all those things. And so what I'm attempting to do tonight is to give them additional information, so when they come in, we can say, here are some of the things or areas that the committee would like to hear specifically about, so we don't necessarily here's just our general overview of what we do to utilize their time and your time more efficiently. And so what I'm going to do is a very brief overview. I mean, we're talking about different options for high school programming. And it's not going to be detailed, and tonight is not meant to answer every question we have about P-Tech High School, what is that and what does it mean? It's really for us to narrow our focus. Because as you can imagine, we could probably brainstorm, and you can look up online, there's probably 20 plus different models that you could look at, but what we need to do is tonight just kind of get a sense of, and I think we have about 14 or so that have been identified as the most frequently occurring alternative models besides just another comprehensive high school, because we know one of our options will be another comprehensive high school, but we also know there are other options beyond that. And so what I want to do tonight is give you that brief 2 or 3 sentences about these are the models, and then we're going to do a quick poll on your phone to see which of those of the 14 or whatever number we have, like the top 4 to 6, because I think we need to eliminate some of those right now, because I don't know about you, but personally I don't want to go in depth on 16 models if I feel like maybe only 6 would be appropriate for our kiddos. So again, the purpose of the next 15 to 30 minutes isn't to go into great detail and lay out the pros and cons of each, is to identify that, because Cooperative Strategies then will come back and I'll say, hey, here are the 4 to 6 to 7 models the committee wants to get that detailed information. We're also going to brainstorm what questions do you have about those models. So I can hand that to them, they can do that work, and they can come back to us. Does that make sense? All right. So very quickly, again, comprehensive, yes, please pass those out. You're going to get sheets just for reference, because when you get on your phone, you may want to be able to look back at this or jot some notes. So again, comprehensive high school, the basic definition is Dripping Springs High School, right? 9 through 12, variety of different programs and activities. Students have lots of different options, so that's a pretty simple one. And when we do our voting, when I give you this little survey and poll, I'm not putting that on there, because we know that's one consideration. We already have a comprehensive high school. Do we want 2, or do we want to look at alternatives? So then beyond that, you have a magnet school, and these are specifically designed for unique programs. And what happens there typically is you may have, depending on the size of your district, you may have a magnet school, you may have multiple magnet schools, but they're designed to serve a specific need or a specific area of your student body. And again, you have these on your sheet, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time. The STEM and STEAM Academy, and when we vote on these two, I've collapsed those because really the difference is more of an emphasis on the arts between STEM and STEAM, but conceptually, if we think that's something we want to explore, I think we can group those so that we can hear about that as a potential program offering. And you see a lot about interdisciplinary units and focusing on, obviously, STEAM is familiar, our STEM is familiar, STEAM is just that addition of the arts piece. You have a Fine Arts Academy, again, that's focusing more on visual arts, fine arts, illustrating, painting, photography, sculpture. So that's more of a, you're really creating that academy for those students who have a passion and interest there. That's the Fine Arts Academy. The Freshman Center or Ninth Grade Center, those terms are used interchangeably. Again, that is the idea of a campus that is built and designed for ninth grade students, and they would be housed in a separate building. You have and I grouped these on the survey also because if you go this model, the junior high, senior high model is junior high, sounds weird because you have middle school and junior high, and depending on what your past experience is, you'll think, oh, junior high is anywhere from 6th or 8th grade, sometimes you hear 7th or 9th grade, but in this model we're talking about junior high as being like a 9, 10, and then senior high 11, 12 model. And again, on the survey I grouped them together because if you think I want to know more about the junior high, then the senior high is dovetailed. Does that make sense? I'm trying to consolidate some of these for you. School within the school, this is the idea of whatever the size of the school is, if you're 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, that you would try to create these schools within the school. Sometimes you might hear of things like academies that are rolling through there, different thematic areas. So what you do is you take a large high school and you kind of divvy it up by interest and by programming to try to create that smaller environment within a larger school. That's school within a school. CTE, again, that is a school focused all around career technology education, certifications, specializations there. Trade school, very similar, but just a little different focus there around carpentry, plumbing, electrical, some of the trades. Virtual school, again, this is more of a newer version where you're looking at more online options and courses taken virtually, obviously, and there would probably be some interaction at face-to-face, but primarily through virtual. Early college, high school, I think you've seen and heard about those a little bit more frequently. Many times, again, that's just focused on those students who are wanting to really earn an associate's degree by the time they graduate from high school. The P-Tech is relatively more on the new side, and that really connects to college and professional work, that idea that you're providing them with those real authentic experiences and looking at more clear pathways and support from school to work, so focus around certification, trades, and industries as that primary focus or vision for that school. And then New Tech High School, again, very focused around technology and integration of curriculum between the core areas in technology, and New Tech, New Tech High School is an example of that locally. And so, again, that was the Reader's Digest, shorter than Reader's Digest version of those things, but I just wanted to give you that brief overview, and so here's what I'd like you to do, is that QR code, I know it works good with an iPhone. If you have a Samsung or another Android device, you may have to go to typing in the URL there. And what you're going to see is there's 4 choices. We're going to pick our top 4, and when we do that in a group this size, we'll probably end up with about 6 choices that bubble up, or maybe more. And so you'll enter that data in, and we have it online, and you'll be able to pull that information once everyone completes it. What I guess I need is if you're having trouble or difficulty accessing it, raise your hand with me, come around and see if I can help. And it will only allow you to vote for, you can't put like magnet school as your first, second, third, fourth choice. It'll turn red and say you can't do that, so it has to be different. You'll have to scroll on your phone to see all the choices also. And if you need to move up, stand up and capture it, feel free.
But then it says that it's going to be anonymous, still in the flyer.
We have 14 accounts. I have all my signed accounts. It's kind of basically outsourced the entire thing.
But so it's still considered as like and it's a lottery system. But it's based on what kind of before you get to the library, you have to put your application and apply for it. And then out of that, if you get accepted, there's something. Oh. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. They call it a new. They call it like the network. Yeah. It makes it sound like it's like tips. Yeah, and like I feel like we already do that. So there's still she's acquired, but not at that, like not here during that day. They make it work. Interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, the virtual and like wait isolated. That was SEL.
Yeah, I would take that away and then be like, I just want these favorite.
Your first choice is to scroll.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
There'll be a little box that comes like this, and you tap on it to go to that website.
I learned that today. It's hard. It's
Could you have more schools within a school? More than, you know what I mean? Can you have a fine arts? And like right. Big one. I think that you can ask that.
Yeah, I just take the picture. Yeah, you just take the picture. Well, yeah, I mean, we're your kid.
I just want to, I've never done this.
Yeah, when you do that. I'm like, I'm done with this class. You having trouble?
I have a question. So like the school within a school, and this might be an obvious question, but I don't want to assume, can you have more than one school?
There's just minority,
Again, all we're looking for is both those up to 6 kids. So I get it. We're not committing to one building.
We shared, we were sharing. They're also
All right, thank you all for participating in that survey. So our next step, and this is the last step we'll do before we break, is what I'm going to do in no particular order, we did a quick poll to figure out what bubbled to the top of the list. And again, this is not we are endorsing and supporting this. This is, we want more information so we can make informed decisions moving forward. Is everybody clear on that? So don't walk out there going, oh my goodness, we selected whatever, da 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 da. I mean, I don't know. So I'm just going to assign you, if you write on your chart tablet, whatever that type is, then we'll go forward. So on this table, put STEM and STEAM, and what you're going to do is you're going to make a T-chart. What questions do you have about STEM and STEAM, and then any additional information you may need to know. And what we're going to do is we're going to do kind of a gallery walk. So everybody will have a chance, and we'll spend a little bit more time for the first couple rotations, but after that, you get a list of ideas and questions, and then each subsequent, so if I rotate over here and I look at whatever they have, if there's something that we agree as a group, put a check mark beside that so we know these, these are the most important questions that we all have. Does that make sense when we get to that rotation? And we may have to combine tables because we probably won't, there aren't 8 that set themselves apart, and if we go from 10 to 8, we haven't really done a whole lot. So STEM, STEAM Academy, and then you all can begin with what questions do you have on one side, additional information. Freshman Center, if you put that on there, again, same thing. Brainstorm what questions you have, what additional information. And then, as I said, you'll have about 5 minutes, and then we're going to rotate the other spots. This third table back here, if you all will put junior high / senior high school model there, and then begin to answer those questions. This table here, where did I leave off? School within a school. That's y'all, school within a school. Early college, high school, and then, where did I leave off? New Tech High School, and then I'm going to be, I'm not trying to be mean, but if you all could distribute yourselves to one of those tables, and then we're going to do a little rotation. A couple last minute details, and we'll get you out of here. And I was told maybe you should promise that getting people out of here early until you really know. Wait till halfway through the meeting before you make that. So I'm still going to get out of here at least maybe 2 minutes early. But I really thought it was more. So thank you for providing that feedback. As I mentioned before, at the next meeting, we'll have cooperative strategies. We'll be here, and this information I will collect and process it and send it to them, because part of what we're tasking them with is to answer these questions for us. So rather than, again, coming in and just giving us an overview, we've dug deeply into what we need answered so we can make informed decisions. So I feel like this will help propel us into that February meeting. Those are some of the things that they work through, including community dialogues and looking at models and answering those questions. And one of the things we talked about in our exit ticket was specific examples. We want to know what that looks like, sounds like, how it impacts other schools, because while we're talking about these in isolation, we still have on the books, we sit here in a comprehensive high school. So how does that model impact this program that currently exists? So thank you all for your participation and your feedback. Our next meeting will be February 20th. On Thursday, and at that time we'll be bringing a lot more logistical details back to the group. So thank you for your time. It is 7:58. We have 2 minutes. Use it wisely. Thank you.